Hey guys, thank you for joining us today on the Legend of Pixels podcast. I'm joined with Morgan over here. Say hi, Morgan.
Hello.
Hi. So basically, we just got out of seeing The Dark Tower. I would like to preface this whole podcast with that we're going to be talking about The Dark Tower, the books and the movie.
We're going to be spoiling everything.
We're going to be spoiling everything.
So if you haven't read the books, all 7 of them, and if you haven't seen the movie, just know that we're going to be talking about things from all 7 books and the movie. So, you know.
Yeah, basically, we have some thoughts. I've only actually read The Gunslinger, which is the first book, and I've gone through half of the second book, while Morgan has actually read all the books, front to back, multiple times. So
Right.
she can definitely give us a lot of insight into maybe the thoughts behind some of the decisions of the movie.
Yeah.
But before that, let me just tell you a little bit about what the Dark Tower movie is about. Basically, it's a sci-fi fantasy western film. It's directed by Nicolas Arsenault. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I did it anyway.
Nikolai Arcel? Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a continuation of Stephen King's novel series by the same name. The film stars Idris Elba as Roland Deschain as the gunslinger on a quest to protect the Dark Tower, a mythical structure which supports all realities. And Matthew McConaughey is his nemesis, Walter O'Dim, or the Man in Black. So, Morgan, let's start with a little bit about, how did you feel before you came into seeing the movie? Like, did you actually want a Dark Tower movie, or did you want something else?
I think that Dark Tower fans have wanted a Dark Tower film adaptation for a while. Film adaptation's kind of been in development hell for quite a long time. The film has gone through a bunch of directors who've said yes and they've said no. Some of those include J.J. Abrams. He did the Star Wars. He's really good. I like J.J. Abrams and Ron Howard. Unfortunately, none of those worked, so they went with Nikolai Arcel. I don't really know too much about him.
Well, he doesn't have that much of a history, actually. I was looking up a little bit about his directorial career.
Right.
He's only had 1, 2, 3, 4, and The Dark Tower as his 5th movie as a director.
Right. So that kind of set the precedent for feeling a little bit hesitant to see the film. I still think that they should have done like an HBO kind of thing with I like Game of Thrones. I like how they've been adapting Game of Thrones to TV. Obviously, Game of Thrones suffers from the same thing where there's a lot of stuff left out or changed, but in general, I think they've done Game of Thrones really well. So I think that would have been the better way to go.
And not only that, but recently, American Gods,
Right.
Was just made into a Showtime series, and it's doing wonderfully, and an amazing cast, and it's representing the book and the author's vision very well. So,
right.
Tell me how you think, the movie could have done. What do you think of the movie, first of all?
I think it was disappointing. I think that the visuals were great. I liked Idris Elba. Matthew McConaughey, what was that weird accent that he was doing? That was kind of ridiculous.
Well, see, the problem with Matthew McConaughey is that he's always going to have that kind of southern drawl, the all right.
It wasn't even a southern drawl. It was almost like a teasing voice he had at certain times where he just, it was very funny, actually. I found it amusing.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if that would be how I would envision the Man in Black from the books. I know that he's kind of like a trickster and a magician, and he's also evil.
And there is a lot of that in the movie where, Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black kind of plays these kind of tricks, forces people to see things, relive things.
Right,
to put them in a...
But that voice, man, that was just a little bit like, I think that was kind of a directorial hiccup. I feel like, the director...
You mean the casting?
No, not the casting. I think if the director had said, hey, don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it I didn't mind. There was just certain times where he started to speak in this really weird not an accent, not a southern drawl, but like almost like a nasally kind of, trying to be an evil villain, kind of like, I don't know if I could compare it, maybe like the guy who plays Rumpelstiltskin, I think in Once Upon a Time, he kind of has that kind of like trickster kind of voice. That just did not, that was weird. That was
so I mean, the way I feel is that Matthew McConaughey definitely took aspects of that character and amped it up a little bit. I mean, you got to think of it this way too. You don't have an entire 20 episode series to go through to evolve the character and make him something like the trickster. So instead, he wanted to amp it up and make it so obvious that it goes on. Now,
it was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was weird,
but it wasn't the worst thing, I would probably say. And honestly, if of all the things that could have been a lot better, it just handled overall, the dialogue. I feel
it was poorly written.
I feel the visuals were great, like you said. I think the whole trick with reloading the guns, amazing. I think the fight scenes, with Roland shooting up the place, amazing. The Man in Black's even abilities, amazing.
Right. But the dialogue, the writing was shit. It was poorly written. I agree with that, and I think that kind of goes into, like, I liked Idris Elba, but I feel like they didn't give him enough dialogue. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like
that's exactly true. Yes,
he was. I know that in the books he's kind of like that as well, very short, very clipped. But in the film adaptation version, I kind of want to know more about him. They gave him a little bit of a backstory with his father, but it was so brief and so rushed, and I don't feel like I got to know or care about him. I feel like it was supposed to focus mostly on Jake, which is fine, except that I feel like out of all the actors in the movie, he was the weakest. I feel like he was completely forgettable. Not bad, not good, just meh.
Right. So let me go into a little bit of who Jake is. Jake is basically an 11-year-old boy. He has the Shine, in the film, which is a nod to the overarching universe of Stephen King, which is basically psychic powers. It's just psychic powers. Firestarter, the girl with the fire, all that.
Yeah,
that's
Firestarter, the Shining, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all linked. So I'm gonna basically throw this out. I feel like Jake was he was a little bit I guess overshadowed by the overarching story. Maybe his the character wasn't really that strong. He wasn't really a strong personality. The actor tried as best as he could, I guess, but overall I think it still comes back to just the dialogue was not. It wasn't great for any of the characters.
No. Yeah.
So I think that is like a big flaw of the movie, beyond the fact that they try to cram 7 books into a single movie.
Right. Like, it was the writing, it was the script writing. It didn't help anybody. Everyone did the best that they could. The visuals were great. I think that there was a lot of potential in it, but yeah, it was very rushed. There was a lot of rushing in the film.
So coming back to the books now.
Yeah.
How would you have made this movie if you were told, well, actually, to be fair, it's not only just going to be a movie, because they're thinking about making a TV series after this movie.
Hopefully, let's hope.
Okay, so you still, but wait a minute. Now we mentioned spoilers, big spoilers. The ending is completely different from what I understand from the books.
Oh, everything is very different. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So tell me a little bit about how so you just said that you want them to continue the TV series. The TV series is going to continue on in a tangent away from the books, and you're cool with that.
I mean, I kind of would hope that they would. I don't know. I think I would have liked, like I said before, like a Game of Thrones adaptation where things can be changed, yes, but I think the visuals are very spot on. Like, Game of Thrones is an incredible series. I know I might be fangirling a little bit on that, but, they work a little bit with George R.R. Martin, and I think that would be good. I think that, if they worked with Stephen King and they did, like, an HBO kind of budget and they actually spaced things out with the books, I think that could be a really great series. As far as the film trying to go and make it a little bit different, that's fine, except they really didn't do a good job with that either, and my fear is if they do that with a TV series, they might also miss the point. at least if they have the books, they kind of have a really good foundation to go on, and then they could consult King on that as well.
Well, okay, so let's go into about the ending, because it's completely different. It's very Hollywood.
Right.
Like a very Hollywood happy ending. Well, okay, let's not be that far happy ending. I mean, the kid, Jake's mom got incinerated.
Right.
His stepdad was an asshole and he died deservingly. But
right.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, but whatever. But that's completely different from the books. What happens in the books? What is the ending in the books?
I mean, the 7th book ending. Let's jump a little bit to the beginning of the books, because we first meet Jake in the first book. And we get a little bit of Jake's backstory in the first book about how, you know, his family dynamic is very different in the book. I remember that his father works at this like TV network, never has a lot of time for him. It's been a while since I read the first 2 books.
No, I actually I'm coming off of reading the first book, and I've delved into the second book, which doesn't really have anything to do with Jake.
Right.
Oh, yeah, spoiler, there are major characters missing from the books.
Right.
But aside from that, Jake, yes, you're right about that. The way Jake comes into the Gunslinger's world, Midworld,
in the first book, yeah.
In the first book, is that he's actually killed by the Man in Black.
Right.
Which is not what happens in the movie. In the movie, he finds a portal, a thinning of the dimensions, and he crosses over.
So you haven't gotten to the 3rd book. That's actually where I was feeling like they crammed all 7 books. Okay. So that house, that scene, that finding the portal, even the house monster, all of that is from the 3rd book, The Wastelands. That is how, in a sense, Jake comes back to Roland's world, except that they kind of draw him out. Like Roland, Susanna, Eddie, they're all together there, and he comes back that way, but in a very different way. Like in the 3rd book, he's having dreams. Yeah, and it's very similar to the 3rd book, this movie, where in the 3rd book he's having dreams and he visualizes the gunslinger, and he kind of like he's living in kind of like an alternate world from where he was in the first book. So like he died in the first book,
right? But
he's alive in this other world.
Now, when we mean he died, he actually died twice, because he died once,
right,
by the Man in Black killing him, and then he appears in the Gunslinger's world called Midworld, and then he dies again because Roland fails to save him,
right?
Because Roland is pure like vengeance mode. He's just zeroed in on the Man in Black, and he's very close to catching him, and he lets Jake die. He lets him drop.
Right, he lets him fall.
Yeah, he lets him fall from a very great height, and he dies.
Right. Yeah, so the movie kind of goes in the 3rd book's direction, and again, like people were saying, like they're trying to make the movie different than the book series. However, there's so many similarities from the book series to the film that the film doesn't do a good job explaining it. It feels like it feels very jumbled, because you jump from, you know, the beginning where he's like on the battlefield kind of thing, and that's, I think they're referencing the Battle of Jericho Hill, which I've read a little bit about in the Dark Tower comic book adaptation. So it was very weird. It starts there, which is a really kind of strange place to start.
That battle isn't in the books?
I think it's mentioned in the 4th book. In the 4th book, you get to know Roland's backstory. So, again, it's been a while since I've read that one. I read the comics a little bit more frequently than I have read that one.
Okay.
But, yeah, that's very strange. In the 4th book, you get to know Roland's childhood. You get to know more about his father, his beef with, you know, Martin.
Well, you know, the biggest problem here is that, again, they're not able to do that within one movie.
Right.
But they're continuing the story. We might see maybe flashbacks to Roland's past. I don't know if Idris Elba is actually going to be part of this. If he's going to be playing, you know, the gunslinger, or
so do they plan to make a sequel of this film? Because that is an absolute no. Yeah. I just feel very disappointed. They completely screwed up anything that they could have done. I feel like...
Well, okay, so it says here, in an interview with Collider, Stephen King expressed hope for a sequel to The Dark Tower, in addition to the film's follow-up television series. So there you go, that's one thing. Stating that if a sequel is made, it would have a rated R, and it would include Roland wearing a hat. and that the opening scene of The Dark Tower 2, The Drawing of Three, in which Roland loses 2 of his fingers to lobstrosities, would be adapted. So there isn't really much to go on in terms of, it's just Stephen King expressing. I mean, Stephen King is very much a guy who wants to make all his books into movies, and just, even if they're not the best, he wants them on the big screen.
He doesn't have a great track record. I don't know. You remember Maximum Overdrive?
Yeah, Maximum Overdrive.
No.
That other movie, with the cats. What was it called? It was.
I can't remember.
God, man.
There's a lot of them.
And he directed that one. It was terrible. There was incest. There was alien cat people.
Oh yeah, there's been some really
gross.
bad.
So
the Tommyknockers. Yeah, there's been some really weird ones. Langoliers, you remember those? I
actually love Langoliers, so I don't even want to hear about your fucking hate about the Langoliers, because the Langoliers was an amazing TV movie. And it had a lot of the dimensional stuff, of crossing between worlds kind of thing, and the end of time. Wait. That's a great question. So the Langoliers, right now, I believe we mentioned a little bit earlier, the book series definitely ties in a lot of the other series.
They're all connected.
Right.
All of them are connected to the Dark Tower and interconnected with each other. I think that's an interesting point.
So wait a minute. So what I'm saying is the Langoliers, they're basically the end of time, the end of the world.
I don't know.
Would they be part of the whole darkness that the Dark Tower movie references, where if the tower falls, the darkness comes in, and it's all just demons and monsters and shit?
I think The Mist is a closer reference.
Example of that?
Where there's a rip, there's a tear.
Now that's really cool too. The Mist's whole idea of a Cthulhu world coming into our world.
Right.
And just destroying us. Yeah.
Right. I did the only thing I can really say that I enjoyed about the movie was how many little references it had to not just other King works, but to the Dark Tower series, and I think that also lends back to my disappointment of how much they crammed in there. So in the beginning, you see the children who are working to break the beam. That is something referenced in the later books, in books 5 through 7.
Right.
That one first comes through in Wolves of the Calla, which you kind of get, I feel like you get a glimpse of it when they go through that town towards the end, where, they have the station and Roland's coming back to New York again. It was very strange. That definitely felt like a very rushed Wolves of the Calla reference. So yeah, you start with that. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You start with that. And then you see the number 19, which is referenced throughout the book series. That was kind of cool. He uses the number 19 in the house to get through to Roland's world. The house, again, being book 3. When he comes through to Roland's world with the sand, that's kind of book 1.
So is there... So there's not a lot of... they made
it's a continuity problem.
Well, yeah, it's a continuity problem, but in my opinion, I actually feel that although they crammed 7 books into one movie, they did follow the beats to get us to the end of the story. I mean, I didn't feel lost, even though, I understand that a lot of references are being ripped from
there's a lot of things being thrown around at once. I think for someone who hasn't finished the book series, there's a lot to enjoy. For someone who has, they would get the references, but I think the references in a way also would frustrate them, and how many things are being thrown around just haphazardly. Well, it was a mess. It was a mess. I liked the references, when Jake is in the therapist's office, you see a photo on his desk of The Shining. When Jake is exploring through Roland's world, you see this abandoned amusement park with Pennywise, a reference to it. Even that exploration scene with Roland in the beginning with those abandoned, theme park rides kind of reminded me of Book 3, The Wasteland, where they kind of go through this broken town. There's a lot of references. The Dixie Pig is another one that comes through towards the very end of the novels. My only complaint with the Dixie Pig, the outside, the exterior, was great. It was a great reference. I love the sign, Mm-hmm. Inside, it looked like something ripped out of Harry Potter, which was very weird. Okay. There was multi-levels. It was just very weird. A long time ago, I played this kind of point-and-click game. I think it was on Stephen King's website at one point. to explore kind of some worlds of the Dark Tower. This is a long time ago. This was, I think, before the comic books even came out.
Wayback Machine, yeah.
Right, before. I think it was a promotional thing for the comics, and they had a scene where you would go through the Dixie Pig looking in clues, and it was painted out very differently, but I really liked how they did it. It was, single level, very grungy, very grimy.
Now, let me ask you another thing. When it comes to the minions, the
Lowmen, yeah.
Yeah, the Lowmen, but they're called something else in this movie, like the skin. Well, they have flappy skin. All right, so basically, it's not really explained obviously in this movie, but why are they following the Man in Black? The Man in Black wants to destroy everything.
They're just kind of like, like in movies, like his grunts, his minions.
But
in the books,
it's the same thing.
Yeah, they're just
like I didn't see the motivation. Like why would they follow? Well, I guess they would follow him because he has full control over them. The Man in Black's powers also include not only incinerating people, but he can just tell them to stop breathing, and they do.
Yeah, they kind of amped up the Man in Black as well. It was kind of strange. In the book series, they kind of go into the Lowmen a bit more. The Lowmen are also mentioned in other King books like Hearts in Atlantis, because they're after Ted Brodigan. Ted Brodigan was one of the breakers of the beam. So that's another interesting thing is in the book series, the breakers that they get, they're not all children. It's not just children who have this power. It's anybody who has, I guess the shine. They don't really call it that necessarily in the book series, the shine. It's just they have these psychic powers. They are, kidnapped, taken to this prison.
Mm-hmm.
The prison in the movies, I guess that works. It wasn't as different as I expected.
Okay.
But yeah, there was just a whole lot of people there. And what's interesting as well is that there's another character who's in this prison, who's referenced in the beginning of the books, like in book 4, whose name is Shimi, who Roland meets when he's very young on his very first gunslinger mission.
Okay.
So I think that's interesting how they connect it all together. I was kind of also disappointed that they just made it about children. I thought that was I know that they're trying to make it Jake is the one who can break the tower and this is why we care, but it was just
which is not really a main focus of the book series, where Jake is the one who has so much psychic energy that they strap him into a machine in this prison and blast the tower with a beam of energy.
Yeah, that was
weird. And that's not something that's in the book series.
No, not even the revenge thing either. I kind of was disappointed with that as well, where
Roland's revenge?
Yeah, where it starts with, the Man in Black killing Roland's father, and Roland's kind of on this quest to kill the Man in Black. In the book series, he has this obsession, this sickness towards finding the tower. He's on this long quest to reach the Dark Tower. He wants to climb up the tower and see what's at the top. Mm-hmm. He hates the Man in Black. That's fine. The two of them have their thing going. There's also the Crimson King, which in the movie there's references on the wall. All hail the Crimson King.
Well, now when I saw those references, I immediately thought they were referencing the Man in Black.
No.
Oh, that's a separate thing.
There's Crimson King at the top of the tower. That's, I think, one thing that fans of the book series didn't really like is how quickly the Crimson King was taken care of in the last book. It was kind of silly.
Okay.
I think people have a beef from, I would say, book 5, 5 through 7, where things are kind of strange. Things get pretty weird.
Okay.
For me, my favorite book is still the 3rd book. I think it's the most creative. I love the whole evil train thing. I love the broken down city.
And also, in the 3rd book, all 3 join Roland on his quartet.
Yeah, so you have Jake, Eddie, Susanna. They're all together.
Right.
In the 3rd book, Jake meets Oi, which the movie references as well in the commercial with the talking raccoons.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
They're talking animals in...
Not necessarily. In the book, Oi is a thing called a billy bumbler, which is kind of like a raccoon creature.
Okay.
And he can kind of mimic parrot things, kind of, but he's very intelligent. Oi is, they call him that because when they're, calling him a boy, that's how he, mimics that back. And, it's kind of cute. He's, Jake's companion.
Well, I mean, it does seem like there will be a follow-up television series Although the critical response has not been good toward the movie. Right now, I believe it's sitting around 19% approval rating.
Right.
And I don't know. Obviously, a lot of fans of the book series, of the novels, are just not digging the changes, and there are quite a few.
It feels very, I don't know. I think they just missed a really good opportunity. I think that, some people are saying, oh, the low ratings, don't listen to the low ratings. There's a lot of good in the movie. And I think that, yeah, I can see a lot of good in the movie, but it's overshadowed by how much they could have done. Like, I feel like the low percentage rating is that they had so much to work with and they fucked up so much.
Right. Like, so speaking of some good things, because I do feel there were actually some really nice things about the movie.
The good things, there's very few.
I know, but the one of the great things I think in this movie was actually the development of the relationship between Roland and Jake. Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously I haven't read the books, so obviously the books probably superior, but that scene when they're just, Roland is going through his whole gunslinger motto or whatever you want to call it,
right?
And he's trying to calm Jake down after Jake learns that the Man in Black basically burned his mom to cinders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what I'm saying is that scene was really nice. Like they both kind of got in sync. Roland gave Jake his gun, okay?
Right.
And they just start shooting some cans, and it was just like kind of a nice way of them bonding, because before that they really hadn't bonded. Yeah, Roland saved Jake a few times, sure, but this was the one time kind of Roland opened up to him.
Yeah.
In a way that we didn't see. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if I have to take away anything from this movie, I think that scene was really nice. And I mean, in the end, the ending being that, oh hey, you don't have a reason to stay here anymore, and I can't stay here, so why don't you just come join me? That's something that if you read the first book, you would never see that happen, because Roland betrayed Jake. Right. Now Jake saw it coming, but and honestly, this entire time, like in the movie, I thought, okay, well, first of all, I can't believe he killed the Man in Black. That was like shocking to me for some reason.
That was very rushed.
Okay, that's very rushed.
They completely dealt with the beam breaking station and the Man in Black in one shot. That was fuck.
And it was pretty crazy. It was a crazy shot that Roland had to take to make that even happen, and that was cool. I would say that was cool. But honestly, what I thought was going to happen after that is that the bullet was going to go straight for Jake's head. I didn't think Roland was going to save him for a second. I really thought, like, no, but of course, it's a Hollywood thing. It's a Hollywood ending.
Well, that, and they removed Roland's obsession with the tower. In the movie, they almost imply that he doesn't even care about the tower, which is very strange to me. He only cares about the Man in Black. So,
which is kind of the reverse.
What is his motivation if they were to continue? So he has Jake. They're going to go back to Roland's world.
And there's no Man in Black.
Right, there's no Man in Black, and there's no real motivation for him to go to the tower because, they've already destroyed the beam breaking station, so what the hell is the point?
Well, okay, so there's like a mythos behind the Gunslingers. They're basically like Knights of the Round Table, sort of. Even in the movie, they referenced Roland's guns made by the steel of which Excalibur...
I'm going to have to reread the books to check that reference.
Yeah, you think that reference is a little off?
I think that's a little off.
Okay.
But again, I need to reread the books. Like, I want to go back and reread the books. There's a lot that I remember. I've read through the series multiple times. I've read every Stephen King
But there
book.
are, like, some things that are just
There were some things in the movie that I was kind of like, I don't know if that's correct. But again, I don't want to say anything and get it wrong, so I'll say, okay, sure. They are kind of described as knights in the book. They are the elves. That's the same.
Okay.
That's kind of referenced the way that the people in the town. I'm just gonna call it the Cala because that's what I think it is. The way that they talk to him and reference him. That sounds fine.
Okay.
But
yeah, you obviously you weren't impressed, and definitely coming from somebody who's read all 7 novels.
I just don't understand why they would put so many references and then miss so much in the movie. It's like they have so much that's correct they have so much there that they obviously, like, there were certain things where I'm like, oh, they know what they're talking about in this thing or this thing. And then they just completely, like, I feel like they had it written on a piece of paper and they needed to shorten it, so they just took a lot of things that they could have added, crumpled it up, tossed it away, and just went with whatever. It was just very meshed and rushed. And it was a 95-minute movie, and what is ironic to me is that the Stephen King adaptation of It, the new adaptation of It, that movie is longer than this movie, and that's just one.
Long.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a long book. It's a 1,000-page book, but it's one book.
Right.
This is a 7-book series,
Right.
plus 8 if you count Wind Through the Keyhole. I don't really, or the, like, short story Little Sister of Illyria. I don't really count that either. I mostly count the first 1 through 7, even though there's many other references and spin-offs, but fuck. I can't really say that enough. Like, there was a lot of great visuals, there was a lot of great promise, the references, like even the reference when they're leaving the Cala and they're going back to New York, above the portal is 1408. Like, there's so many references.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, they just jumbled so much. It did.
So overall, obviously you are a big proponent of reading the novels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my feeling is this. I think this showed that there could be something in the future. I think that, yeah, there was so much promise, and there are a lot of people who really want a good Dark Tower adaptation. There's a lot of fans of Stephen King who've been wanting that for a really long time. I'm among them. I love the comic book series. I love the art. I didn't hate the Dark Tower. I was just disappointed by the Dark Tower. I was disappointed in what they missed. You know, they had an opportunity, okay, they're going to make it different, but they didn't really make it different. They didn't really explain it. They rushed it. It was just very...
Well, I mean, I guess in the end, you know, they are trying to fall back on a TV series. Now, with the way, you know, a lot of the reception has been for this, I don't know if there will be a TV series.
I think that there's a potential for it.
Okay.
In a perfect world, in my head, when Game of Thrones comes to an end, and
HBO yeah.
Right, and HBO needs a new series to pick up where Game of Thrones left off, but the important thing is that they get, you know, the right people to work on it. They work with Stephen King, like they've been working on the series with George R.R. Martin, and they make it faithful. I think if they make a faithful adaptation of the books, or try to, or do their best to show that they care about the source material, because that's another thing about this film. It's like there's moments where, oh, they really care about their source material. They're referencing these really cool things, and other things where they're like, why the heck did you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you rush through that? Why did you do it this way? Like not giving a shit. There were so many moments where the film like sped something up or rushed past something. It just didn't give a shit. Like, it wanted to be an action film. It focused on that action. You know, the scene that you liked with Roland and Jake, I think there could have been more than that. Like, why would they rush through so much of this building?
I mean, don't get me wrong. You're right about the 90-minute runtime is ridiculous for a movie like this, where there's so much source material to go on. And like we said in the beginning, the writing was kind of, you know, half-assed, a little lacking. Roland didn't have much to talk about.
Right.
And there were very few, like, quips. Not funny, not even funny moments, but very, like, two. I could think of two where they'd be like, huh, you know? But
the fish out of water thing, I think, was the...
Yeah.
Which was even funnier to me, because you have the things where he doesn't understand about, like, soda, which reminds me of, like, the second book where he needs antibiotics.
Uh-huh.
And then when he's fighting the Lowmen in the Dixie Pig and he finds the propane tank.
Yeah.
How the heck did he know that would do that?
Yeah. I mean, because from what I remember, especially in the second book, once he started inhabiting, Eddie's mind, he was then able to understand things from our world.
But he didn't have that opportunity.
Right, to learn. So it was just kind of already implied that everything is just, it's in both worlds.
Like, I guess that you could just assume that maybe his link with Jake, his mental link with Jake, but that was just very...
Yeah, that was weird.
It was like, oh, it's an action scene, let's give some fire, some explosions, let's make it... It was a great scene. It was well shot. There were a lot of really great visuals, but there were so many things that were
missing,
rushed, dumbed down, skipped past, jumbled, very meh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I agree with the 19% rating, not because I hated it, but because there were so many opportunities where I was just cringing, like, no, dude, like, explore this, like,
Yeah.
just show more of this, do more with this. Why are you rushing past this? Why do you not care about this or that? Like, why? That
Yeah.
was the thought in my head the whole time. Why? Just
Well, I mean, obviously the movie has been in,
development hell for so long.
right?
I know, but
and the
still,
fact that it came out, at all is pretty surprising. Yes, could it have been put back again and let someone else take over? Maybe someone who, I don't know, is more
gives a
intimate.
shit.
Right, I guess more intimate with the novel series, more passionate about it, and found the production and the funding. Because who knows, a lot of the executives might had their own ideas of how this movie should have turned out, and this is what we see. We don't really know exactly, but the fact is that, if the TV series doesn't happen, I really hope this doesn't burn anybody else from seeing the next Dark Tower. If it's a reboot.
I think it depends. Like, King has a lot of stuff going on right now. He's got that new remake of It coming out. He has, during this August, he has a TV series for Mr. Mercedes. There's a new TV series coming out for The Mist. He's got a lot of shit going on.
He's got
a lot of shit. I feel like he's, like, hitting that thing where he's, like, feeling older and, like, I really want to see this done and that done.
He thinks he's going to die tomorrow. That's exactly what he's thinking. And so he's, like, just pumping it out. So he's set for the rest of his life, if he's not already.
I just think he really wants to see certain things done a certain way, or he wants to see,
let's redo The Stand. How about we redo The Stand instead of the shitty goddamn, like,
I think maybe
TV
I think that might be in the pipeline. You never know. Like, they wanted to redo I would say it's a mediocre TV series of It. I wouldn't say it's shitty. I liked some certain things of it. I didn't like certain things of it. I think that updating it, we have different thoughts. That's a different podcast. That's fine.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're gonna see it. We're gonna talk about it because we both enjoy Stephen King's work profile, just overall. But just for this movie, for The Dark Tower, I did like some of it. Okay, the movie, it was just a dumb action movie. The writing could have been better, a lot better. But I like the actors.
What would you rate it?
Well, I mean, I don't think the 19% is, like, too far from what I would rate it either. But I'd still give maybe, I still feel there's a lot of charisma with Idris Elba. Okay, he just needed better lines, and he didn't have it.
Yeah,
which was the problem.
He did the best what he had. I did like Idris Elba. So
because of the writing, I will give it maybe a 25%. Give it a 25%.
Mm-hmm.
If the visuals were great, but the movie was rushed.
Yeah, I think the 19% is low. I do think that's low. I think it wasn't horrible. It was entertaining for its action scenes. The visuals were fine. I think that there was no cohesive story to hold it together.
Which is what a lot of critics have said.
Right. It was very jumbled. It was not well done. The writing was horrible. There were certain things, like, even with the Matthew McConaughey voice, like, that I was just kind of like, oh, God, please don't do that. Like,
he was just being a creeper, It was
very weird. It was very weird. Like, I think visually he looked great as a Man in Black. I think there were a lot of great scenes with him.
Yeah, with his popped open little dress shirt. Exposing his little chest hairs.
I just think that there might have been other ways, maybe a different take on a certain scene. The director goes, "Cut, let's try it a different way."
How about Ian McShane, who Wednesday from American Gods is the Man in Black?
I mean, there's a lot of people I could think of to be the Man in Black.
Who would have been your Man in Black?
I don't want to say it because I think it's stupid. Do you know the guy? I can't remember his name. Plays the Green Goblin, the original Spider-Man.
Yeah, I do.
What's his name? Can we look up his name? Because I really think that he would be good, but again, maybe people would think that that's stupid.
Yeah, oh, jeez. This is the wrong place to look.
You'd have to, IMDb it, but...
Hold on. Here we go.
It is William Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe. Yeah, I think he would be good. Again.
Really, that would have been great. And he's playing Ryuk's voice. In the.
I think he's really talented. I like Willem Dafoe. I like him a lot. I would like to see him things, but again, like it could go any way. I'm not picky.
And Roland?
I warmed up to Idris Elba as Roland. The only other person I had in my mind before they cast the movie. Before, like, I did a dream casting kind of thing, like, where I picked different actors for different things before they said the movie. Like, the movie's coming, but they didn't have a cast. I was thinking, like, the guy who plays Bohannon in Hell on Wheels.
Anson Mount.
But again, I just think that he's just an underutilized actor.
And for those who haven't seen Hell on Wheels,
he's coming in The Defenders.
No, not The Defenders. He's coming in.
Not Defenders.
What is it called? Inhumans.
Inhumans.
But aside from, but Hell on Wheels is actually a great representation of what Roland could have been.
Right.
It was a very fleshed out. Yeah.
Very Western. Like, yeah, I've seen that a lot where. It's very true to King's original concept of Roland, where he was kind of like thinking like a Clint Eastwood type.
Sure.
Again, I actually warmed up to Idris Elba as Roland.
Yeah.
I liked his voice. I liked the way he composed himself.
Just very charismatic. Although he didn't have any lines that really
to bring it out. Yeah.
To bring it out, and he had the fish out of water kind of like cute like quips, but he was very charismatic.
And then like for Eddie, I was thinking the guy who plays.
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul.
From Breaking Bad.
When you're reading through the second book, would you say that's accurate?
Oh, yeah, very accurate. Because Eddie is very, like, quick-witted.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron Paul in the beginning is not very quick-witted, but he gets smart,
in Breaking Bad?
Yeah, in Breaking Bad. So
Jesse.
Yeah, that progression, like, in the later seasons, like 3, I guess, or 4.
Yeah.
I would say Breaking Bad for sure for Aaron Paul.
God, it's such a good series. But yeah. I just keep thinking of Walter, like, talking to Jesse, just all those scenes.
There you go. That could have been a Man in Black. No?
No.
Really?
I don't know.
Walter White not good enough for you, huh? As the Man in Black?
No, I don't know.
Ooh, okay. All right. But anyway, let's so don't go see the movie, read the books.
I mean, if you're curious about the movie, I'd say wait and rent it, sit at home, be comfortable, cringe at home.
Sure, cringe at home.
Cringe at home. But yeah,
there was just too much wrong with the movie for you to go out and see it.
There was a lot of great references, but at the same time those references also made you frustrated because there was a lot missed. I think that's the thing. It's a disappointing film. It's not a bad film. It's a disappointing film because of what they could have done. Sure. And that's my summary.
A lot of missed opportunities.
A lot of missed opportunities.
Gotcha. Well, like I said, hopefully this doesn't burn any bridges on reboots. Then again, reboots are happening all the time anyway because Hollywood, of course, needs reboots to maintain its status quo.
Right.
So hopefully in the future, hopefully maybe before King goes on to the next life or whatever.
That's getting dark. We're getting real dark.
Well,
real fast.
I mean, every year, man, every year. So, again, Spider-Man had a reboot not too long after 2002 Spider-Man.
And then another reboot.
Yeah, and now another reboot. So, you never know.
Yeah.
It might be a thing that can happen.
Yeah.
But, I would say there was a few shining moments for me. Obviously, that only bumped me up to like a 25% out of the 19%. The dialogue, was kind of crap.
Yeah.
So, I'm reading the books right now. I think the dialogue in the books is great. I feel like I'm intimate with the characters. And obviously, in a book, you can be inside Roland's head. So, even though Roland might not be saying much, you know what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
So, in the end, read the books. And see the movie maybe at home.
Yeah.
Some other time. Well, anyway, that wraps us up for this week's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave your comments wherever you can possibly leave your comments. And we'll see you all next time. Bye.